Husband receives photo from his wife, then immediately wants a divorce. Photos are an important part of our lives. Holiday memories, how cute your pet is, the beauty of your partner. It can all be captured in a photo. Still, sometimes it's better not to look too much into the details, because who knows, you might come across something that you previously overlooked. Something that has enormous consequences. John Baker also experienced this. He saw something in a photo of his wife that made him want to divorce her immediately. John and Baker Chloe had been married for 5 years and lived in San Francisco. The American couple had a special relationship. John traveled the world for work and was sometimes away from home for weeks, while Chloe spent her time volunteering at various charities in the city. Because Chloe was home alone so often, she was in charge of the household. When John was home for a week, he had to obey his wife's house rules. This had caused tensions at first, but eventually John had resigned himself to it. He had long been happy to have such a beautiful wife to come home to. The husband, John, had a good job as a sales representative for a technology company. This company had customers and partners all over the world, so John was often away from home for work for weeks. He always flew first class and slept in the most beautiful hotel rooms. His life consisted of luxury. Still, John loved being home with the love of his life, Chloe. When John was on a business trip, the couple often spoke on the phone. Chloe had said early in their relationship that she didn't like video calling, so the couple didn't see each other for weeks. John often sent a selfie when he arrived on location, but he couldn't expect the same from Chloe. He was used to this. Chloe was a stunning popular woman with a huge circle of acquaintances. Because of her large network, she was a welcome guest at fundraisers and other events. Because John had such a good job, Chloe didn't have to work herself. She spent her time supporting charities. Thus she filled her days with something that was good for the world. In addition, Chloe also took good care of herself. She loved going out, good food and shopping, which she preferred to do with friends. Chloe was known as a very sociable person and liked to strike up a conversation with everyone. Waiters, shop assistants and other unknown men sometimes mistook this for flirting. Chloe's single friends were very happy about this because Chloe always referred these men to them. In the past, Chloe had earned her money as a model. She had even made it to Playboy as a playmate. During this time, Chloe had been single and thoroughly enjoyed all the male attention that this job entailed. Chloe had met her future husband John while working. She modeled at a world-famous car show where she was hired by the car brand to promote their latest model. Thousands of men were walking, but her eye fell on John as soon as he entered the room. It was love at first sight for her. That day, John was looking for a new car with his then-girlfriend Heather. The couple had driven the same sedan for years, but now that John had started earning more money, there was room to purchase a new car. The day had turned out completely differently than the couple had expected. The car show was very busy. The couple had been walking around for a few hours, but had not yet come across their dream car. John had just been promoted at work and was very happy. He'd just gone to the bathroom and was walking back to Heather when he saw something that seemed to freeze the world around him. Right in front of him, a strange man in a suit approached Heather and kissed her. Heather was clearly shocked, but she seemed to know the man. A heated argument erupted as Heather struggled to keep whispering. John approached the two. Heather was shocked when John confronted them about the situation. The other man seemed just as surprised and outraged as John. "Who the hell are you?" he asked John. "I can ask the same of you," John responded. Heather could have sunk through the ground. It turned out Heather had been in a relationship with the man she met at this fair for a year. The other man hadn't known about John any more than he had about the man. They had both been fooled. Neither of the men knew that their girlfriend was in a relationship with someone else. This was quite a downer for John. He had a bright future ahead of him and was deeply in love with Heather. The unknown man stomped out of the room and John never saw him again. John angrily demanded that Heather leave. She did this, leaving John alone in the room. John had sat down in a chair with his head between his hands. Chloe had watched the whole scenario from a distance and decided to walk over to him. "That looked intense," she said. "Is everything alright?" John tried to brush off the unknown woman with a few reassuring words. This did not go well for him because he burst into tears. Chloe got John a drink and the two started talking. After a few hours of talking about Heather, John's new job, and today's bizarre event, the show had come to an end without them realizing it. Chloe was worried about John. Once home, John decided to dial Chloe's number. Before he knew it, another 3 hours had flown by. This time they had talked about Chloe's career, her dreams, aspirations, and her wishes. John found that he could talk to her very well, but in his head, there was only room for Heather. Heather came to collect her things the next day. John had less trouble with it than he had expected. He was especially looking forward to calling Chloe again. He did this right after she left the house. Again the hours flew by. The two couldn't stop talking. After a few weeks on the phone, John took the plunge and asked Chloe out to dinner. He was over Heather by now, and his eyes were on the gorgeous model who had comforted him at the motor show. She said yes. He took her to one of the most luxurious restaurants in town, where they talked and laughed until the late hours over an expensive bottle of wine. Afterwards, they took a taxi to John's apartment, where they continued their evening. It wasn't long before the couple decided to move in together. They had been together for a year now and the future smiled upon them. It was a rare occurrence for them to sleep in their own house at this point, so a logical next step was to officially move in together. There was just something that gnawed at John. Something wasn't quite right for him. Living together was quite a big thing for him because it had ended in such a bad way last time. He wanted to make sure this didn't happen again. That's why there was one condition he wanted to place on Chloe. One evening, after they went to the movies together, John decided to make his condition known to Chloe. He only hoped she would take it the right way because he didn't mean any wrong with it. He certainly trusted her, but something wasn't quite right for him. It would be very good for his peace of mind if she accepted his condition. "I want to ask you something," John began. "I would like to make a request before we choose to live together." Chloe had no idea what John would ask her, but she was willing to do anything to make him happy. She was looking forward to moving in with her love. "My request is," said John, holding his lover's hand. "I would like you to stop doing nude photography." Chloe looked at him with a smile. She had already expected this to be the condition. Although she had been earning her money doing normal modeling jobs for a while, she still occasionally did a nude photo shoot. Since their relationship had become so serious that they were moving in together, she had already planned to refuse these jobs from now on. John was very happy that she accepted his condition and couldn't wait to move in with his love. Soon after, the two started looking for a house and found a beautiful spot in San Francisco. They were both unfamiliar with the city, so they enjoyed exploring together. Chloe had just snapped a beautiful photo of the Golden Gate Bridge. When she turned, she suddenly saw that John was on his knees in front of her. She let out a scream and bystanders started clapping. Tears streamed down her cheeks and she cried out, "Of course I want to marry you." The months after that flew by. So much had to be arranged. In the spring the time had finally come. The two hosted an extravagant wedding, attended by all their friends and family. The two walked down the aisle toward the altar, where their love would be sealed forever by the waiting priest. The wedding ring that Chloe would wear for the rest of her wedding was beautifully decorated with small diamonds. Costs and effort were not spared because John had these made by a specialized jeweler from France. His princess deserved an extra special ring. Chloe wore the ring with pride. The ring attracted a lot of attention. Some of Chloe's friends lived abroad, which prevented them from attending the wedding. They had already heard about the beautiful wedding ring through the media, so Chloe was repeatedly asked to send a photo of the jewelry. In the years following the wedding, a lot changed in the couple's life. John took on a new role as a sales representative for the company he worked for, while Chloe's career also changed a lot. She noticed that as she got older, she was offered fewer jobs. As a result, Chloe became more and more of a housewife, while John was increasingly away from home. Chloe started working for charities and became a welcome guest at fundraisers and events. The company John worked for was very conscious of his value, so he was now making enough for two. Chloe had to get used to the transition from a life as a single model, full of parties, attention and tension, to a life as a married housewife. Her volunteer work did her good. She was very committed to others. However, she did miss some excitement in her life. She spent most of her time at home. Because she was at home so much, she had a lot of time to think between household chores. She realized that she was not completely satisfied with the current way her life was going. Her husband traveled a lot and earned the money, while she was at home a lot and bored to death. Here and there Chloe was offered a modeling job, but this was not enough. John was also not completely satisfied with the current situation. Although he now held a very important position and earned a lot of money, there was something missing in his life. He began to realize more and more that that something was Chloe. He was sometimes away from home for a long time, so it took weeks before he saw the love of his life again. What also didn't help was the fact that Chloe didn't like pictures or video bubbles. This would make it a lot easier for John because then he would get to see his wife again. He decided to insist on it once during this business trip. He missed her terribly. The couple had just called for half an hour while John was boarding his next flight. Chloe had been on the way home during the phone call and now plopped down on the couch. Suddenly she received a message from her husband, who had to be on the plane by now. "Would you please send me a picture of yourself? I miss you terribly and it pains me not to see you these next few weeks. Please." John typed. He then put his phone on airplane mode and fastened his seatbelt carefully. The plane started to taxi and prepared to take off. Chloe read the message with a frown on her face. A picture of herself. John knew she didn't like that, right? She was a professional model, she saw herself often enough already. She wanted to keep work and private life separate. Chloe intended to decline the request. Then she realized how John must be feeling. Lonely and alone, in a foreign land, far from home. The least she could do to satisfy him was to send a photo. She posed for a selfie, took a few, chose the best one and sent it to her husband, accompanied by a heart emoji. After she sent the photo, Chloe took another good look at it. She looked good and couldn't believe that she wasn't being offered more modeling jobs. In the past, she even had to reject them because she no longer had time for new jobs. Then suddenly she noticed a detail that shocked her. "Oh no." She yelled out loud, starting at her phone in the living room. She'd noticed something she knew would anger John. Her fingers quickly tapped the keyboard of her cell phone until the screen suddenly went black. Her battery had died. John was going to land and see the photograph. Once landed, John took his phone off airplane mode and a big smile appeared on his face. He had one new message from the love of his life. He opened the messaging app and saw the beautiful photo of his beautiful wife. Deeply in love, John stared at the screen. Her beautiful smile, her beautiful eyes, her shiny hair. Suddenly John's heart skipped a beat. What was that? His heart began to pound in his throat. He had noticed something in the photo that had really shocked him. What did this mean? John trembled with rage as he dialed his wife's number for the fourth time. She didn't answer again. He didn't know that her phone had gone down, of course, so he tried a fifth time. When this attempt also proved unsuccessful, John decided to call another number. His lawyer answered in the usual friendly tone. John explained the situation to him and concluded his story with a request. "I want you to get the divorce papers in order," he said. The lawyer repeated John's words in astonishment. "Are you sure about this?" he asked John. "Talk to her first, who knows, maybe she'll have an explanation." John was straight to the point. "Where the hell is your wedding ring?" Chloe had already expected this to catch his eye. He had spent so much money and gone to such lengths to get this wedding ring on her finger. He had noticed this detail immediately. The photo indeed showed that Chloe was not wearing her wedding ring. One dark thought ran through John's head. Did she cheat on him when he was on a business trip? Chloe, of course, had mentioned that she was bored at home. It could be that she had sought the excitement outside the door and had forgotten to put her wedding ring back on. Did this happen more often? She never sent a photo, of course. Chloe decided to tell her husband the truth. It was hard enough for him to be far from home and not be able to see her face during this conversation. It was hard for her to get around the truth and tell him a story. She decided not to beat around the bush. She knew she would startle her husband with the truth because she promised him never to do this. Yet she loved John dearly and knew that she had no choice but to tell them why the ring was not on her finger in the photo. Chloe told John that she did something that day that he wouldn't like. She had been sitting at home and very bored. There was no volunteering to do that day, no events to attend, and she had already completed all the household chores. She called an acquaintance for an appointment and then went out. Along the way, Chloe knew she was doing something her husband didn't want her to do, but she was done with the boredom. At least this was something exciting. And he wouldn't even find out. Chloe booked a nude photo shoot with a professional photographer. There was nothing sexual about this shoot, it was purely artistic. Although John had asked her not to do any more nude shoots, but this one time she decided to go against his wishes. She thought that was quite exciting. The shoot was very respectful and beautiful. Chloe felt attractive again, something she had felt a lot less in these past years. She might not be able to make ends meet as a model, but she still had it in her. Once home, John had asked her for a photo and sent the selfie. John was very relieved that his wife hadn't cheated on him. He immediately told her that he didn't mind that she had such a photo shoot. John desperately wanted his girlfriend to feel attractive and beautiful. He could well imagine that such a life as a housewife was boring. The two had a good chat about their wishes and dreams. They told each other that they were both not completely happy with their marriage. They loved each other very much and enjoyed every moment they were together, but John was away from home too often. John contacted his boss and indicated that he no longer wanted to be away from home so often. He asked if there was no position in San Francisco. This would mean that he could be with his wife every day again. Much to his relief, his boss understood him completely. And it got even better. Surprise. John's boss told him a management position had become vacant in San Francisco. He had wanted to offer it to John the moment he returned from his current business trip. Now that John called with this request, he couldn't keep it to himself any longer. John accepted the offer and they agreed to discuss the details in the office the following week. Both the sneaky photo shoot and the fact that she now had her husband close to her again led to Chloe now being a lot more confident in life. And this she radiated. Suddenly she was offered job after job and Chloe's career as a model took off. The two agreed that Chloe would not take too many jobs abroad. They didn't want history to repeat itself, of course.